Hi guys, and welcome to the beginning of my tutorial series on Objective-C and writing apps for the iPhone and iPod Touch on iOS 5. So I've installed Xcode 4.2.1 on my Mac, and I am ready to get started. So launch Xcode and create a new Xcode project. And we're going to go into iOS Application, and then click on Single View Application, and click Next. For product name, type in whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it Tutorial 01. We're not going to use a storyboard, and you can leave these two options on, and then click Next. And I'm going to save it just to my developer folder. You don't need a local Git repository. And then it creates this, and we have the Xcode interface. In this tutorial, we're going to be going over a basic HelloWorld application, and then adding some other functionality to it. So you'll learn about if statements, how the whole thing works. I think it's helpful to have experience in some sort of programming, but you should be able to follow along just as well otherwise. Well, not just as well, but well. So looking at the interface, we have our toolbar kind of thing up here. Run the app on your different devices. So I'm just going to set that to iPhone 5 Simulator. Breakpoints, you should have off for right now. That's what it would look like if it was on. Keep it off. This is the dialog box. These are the editor commands. You can have this like tuxedo kind of option, so you can have two windows open at once. This is to toggle the log at the bottom. Over here you have your inspector, which we'll be using later, and over here you have all of your controls and other some things that you can use. So over here, if you look in your Explorer or your Finder, you see there's the app delegate header and main files. The header file is where you declare things, and the main file is where you have most of your code. We're not going to be using the app delegate for now, but we are going to be using the viewcontroller.h and .m. And since this is going to be an iPhone app this time, we're going to be using the viewcontroller_iPhone.xib. This xib file is where we're going to be starting, and this is the interface file. So if I were to run the app right now, it's going to show me this blank interface because we haven't added anything to the interface. So here's our blank interface. So the first thing we're going to do is add in a button. Buttons are used to activate code. Well, at least this button is going to be. So when we press the button, it's going to do something. So just double click it to rename it, and I'm going to type in press me. And it automatically resizes. This is a standard button. There are many different types of buttons. And we're also going to need a label. So this is like classic Hello World. It displays the text. And now what we have to do is link this interface file into our code. So Apple's created a nice way of doing this in iOS 5. And to do that, switch this to the assistant editor, or the tuxedo as I like to call it, and make this go to automatic, and then click on viewcontroller.h. And now what you're going to do is select the button, and then on your keyboard, hold down Control and drag from the button into your at interface. And now release your mouse and then release Control. And now you want to set the connection to an action, so we're going to make an action that gets triggered when someone presses the button, and call it, the action can be called button 1 pressed. There is a naming convention involved. You need to, or it's recommended that you have the first letter of your first word in lowercase, and then the first letters of every other word in uppercase. It's called camelback or camel hump naming. Event, don't worry about ID or type or arguments, but event touch up inside is just a standard tap of the button. Others are like you tap it and then you drag your finger out and then you release. But for now we're just worrying about or dealing with touch up inside. Make sure it's an action. So it creates this, and it's also created some other stuff that we'll be looking at later. And now we're going to create an outlet for the label. If you go into the inspector, the attributes inspector, you can see here all of these properties. By creating an outlet, we'll be able to modify the properties of the label from the code, rather than just from here. So it's dynamic rather than static. So select the label, Control drag again into here. Now this time it won't let you create an action for it, so just click outlet, not outlet connection, and type in for the name like display label. And again, I have lowercase d in display and capital L in label. Don't worry about the type, which isn't going to change, or the storage. That's part of iOS 5, their ARC memory allocation, but just don't worry about that for now. So now we've created this, and we are pretty much done with our interface. You can customize this stuff, make it bigger if you want. I'm also going to remove the text of my label so it's invisible until we put in something. So now you can't see it at all. So now if we run the application, we'll see that it doesn't do anything interesting. It has its default animation when you press a button that just inverts, turns it blue. But that's not really helpful. So what we want to do is go into our viewcontroller.m, and I'm going to make it the single view editor. And now there's all of this code that's automatically generated. This has nothing to do with what we've created. At the top, there are comments, which don't affect anything. A double slash is the comment in Objective-C. And then there's the import. We're importing everything that we did in the viewcontroller.h. So when you do something in the .m, it knows that this has already happened. The header file is where you declare stuff. The m file is where you have most of your code. I might have said that. This is the second time recording it, so just bear with me. So now we have at implementation view controller. This essentially tells it that we're starting to work with our view controller. And this is to create some things for this label that we made. Don't worry about that. And now we have some automatically triggered events. So did receive memory warning if the device is running out of memory. View did load. This stuff happens, whatever you put in here occurs when the view opens. So all kinds of stuff. But it automatically created this nice thing for us, button 1 pressed, which happened when we did that little linking thing earlier with the button, not the label. So in here, after this bracket and before the close bracket and before the at end, I'm going to make some space. Objective-C is a white space insensitive language, so you can have as much space as you want. You can make several miles if you wanted. And now what you have to do is type in label, display label, because that's what we called our label, dot, and now we're accessing all the properties. If you're ever unsure of what to type, hit escape and you'll see it's auto-completion. So we want to modify its text property, so I'm going to click on text and then hit tab, and then equals. You can have space equals, 2 spaces and then equals, it doesn't matter. I'll just have no spaces, equals, and then at quotes, and you use an at sign quotes to tell it that it's a string. I know it's different from other languages, kind of unique, but you'll have to get used to it. And then type in some code. I'm not going to use HelloWorld because that's almost a cliche, so I'll type good morning. And close quotes, semicolon. You have to end these lines with a semicolon. Most lines will end with a semicolon. If you've learned Visual Basic or something like that, then you're really going to have to get used to it, but otherwise you should be all set. So this is the only line of code that we've typed so far, and if you don't understand how it works, here's the basic breakdown. We have a UI label, so this corresponds to our label. If we command click on it, it'll bring us to its definition up there. And then we're modifying its text properties. A single equals means that we're setting the property. If we had put a double equals, it'd be checking the property. But don't worry about that quite yet. And then we're setting it to good morning and telling it to end. So now if we run it, we see that our label, which is somewhere in here, doesn't show up right now. We press the button and it says good. And now it's like that because the label is too narrow. So we'll go ahead and fix that. I just quit the simulator. And now if I locate our label, we can make it bigger. And now it'll work. But I'm not going to run it because we want to add some more functionality. I'd recommend you make sure you have that working before you continue on with this tutorial. So go ahead and just save everything. When you modify something, just watch the view controller icon here. It turns gray. When you save it, it turns white. That's good to know. So now what I want to do is make it so that rather than being kind of boring and just like all it does is change it once and now it doesn't do anything when I click it, I want it to be so that I click it once and it says good morning, and then I click it again and it says something else, like good night. So I'm going to quit the simulator again and go into my viewcontroller.h. To do this, we're going to have to create a data type or a variable, and this will be a variable of type Boolean. And a Boolean is a true or false value. And the reason we're using that is because it'll be true if it says good morning and false if it says good night. So you'll see that in just a sec. So to create a Boolean, what we're going to do is type in B-O-O-L, bool, and then space, and then we'll call it is morning. And make sure you capitalize that M, just good practice, and semicolon, hit enter. And I did this wrong, sorry. I need to copy that, cut this, and put it outside of at interface and after your import statement. So now no errors. If I had put it down there, if I'd forgotten a semicolon, it will give me this little bubble, and you click on that, and it says expected semicolon at top level declarator, and fix it, insert semicolon. It's sometimes that helpful that it tells you exactly what to do, but other times it'll be less plain and simple. But hopefully you won't need to do that. But you will. But anyway, so go into your viewcontroller.m file, and now we can get rid of this code. And now we're going to write an if statement. Now what we can do is go over here into code snippets and search for if statement. And right here we have if, used for executing code only when a certain condition is true. And an if-else statement, used for executing code only when a certain condition is true, or a different code if that condition is not true. It says something like that at the end that's cut off. So I'm going to insert an if-else statement, because that's what we're going to be using. And this, I think I can drag it, yeah. So now it has this thing that has a lot of errors because we haven't completed it. So it's asking us for if condition. So for the condition, we're going to say if, what was our variable called? If is morning equals, and then true. So if it is the morning, then label dot text equals, single equals this time because we're setting a property, and then at quotes, good morning, because we want to say good morning when it's the morning, and semicolon. So now we have this, and then we can hit enter, and if we select all this, so we'll do that after. So now it checks this condition, and that condition's always in parentheses, then start bracket, and you could have even more code in here if you wanted, but we're only having one line for now. Label.text equals good morning, then it does this, and, oh sorry, it's not called label. It's called display label. Dot text equals good morning, and now else, we're going to say display label dot text equals at quotes good night, because if it's not morning, it's night for the purposes of this application. I know there are other times of day. And then the other thing we have to do is, just so that it's nice, we're going to say if it's morning and it's already displayed this text, we're now going to make it night. So the app actually does something. So we're going to say is morning equals single equal. Oops, sorry. This is case sensitive. So it's case sensitive. Equals false. Okay, just a sec. And then in this one, we're going to type in is morning. Morning. Oh, I forgot a semicolon. See, I learned Visual Basic first, so that's why. So we're going to type in is morning. Morning equals true. Now, say for example, I had not capitalized my M here. It would give me this error, and it said, did you mean is morning? So this is another easy fix, and I'll just double click on it. So that's good. If you had forgotten a quote, then you might have a little bit more serious problems. It'll start thinking that you're trying to quote more than just that line. It'll give you a thing that says missing terminating quote character, which is pretty good. So you should be able to figure that out. So now we will save and run, and we get our simulator in just a second. And it says good night, and then good morning. Night, morning, night, morning, night, morning, night, morning. So that's good, and now you know how to do that. So definitely make this, and stay tuned for more tutorials. I'm sure you're wondering, if you want to run it on your iPhone, unfortunately, you're going to have to buy a $100 annual subscription to Apple. But that has more benefits also. It allows you to submit apps to the App Store, do all kinds of stuff. So use the simulator for now, and if you're serious about this, then you should certainly get the subscription. So stay tuned, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Check us out at our website, h2micro.com. We'll also be posting an intermediate and advanced version of, or advanced tutorials for this. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.